many times, Lord, have I been cared for?
Hey everyone, this is Pastor Travis with Groundbreakers to Harvesters, and I am excited about getting back together with my brother Gerry and continuing the conversation about the process of going from idea, concept, stirring of the Spirit, thought of planting a church to actually worshiping that church. This is going to be number 3 on the list of videos on this, and so if you have not yet, we really encourage you to go back to the first 2 videos and take some time listening to those. I know a handful of you guys have actually reached out and talked about what a blessing that's been and how you've even demanded your pastors to watch them and understand what's going on. And so on behalf of me, who has a heart and a passion for church planting, and I know Gerry shares that heart and passion, we say thank you. And we are kind of humbled by the opportunity to maybe, just maybe, spark the church planting heart in the hearts and the minds of the congregations across this state and, God willing, across this world. Because let me tell you, the harvest is plentiful, as we like to say, but the workers are few. And thank God we have a big God who can part the Red Sea and use a guy like David and a guy like me and a guy like Gerry to do the unimaginable and bring hope to the hopeless and bring light to the darkness and remind people that Jesus is stupid in love with them. So with that in mind, I'd love to bring Gerry on. Gerry, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Travis. It's great to be with you today too. And wow, what a incredible journey we're on in this, isn't it? And I just share, to all of you who are listening, I share the same thing. Just thank you for being a part of this, for listening, and for being interested possibly in going forward with this. I know God has great things in store across this nation for his kingdom. And what's interesting to me is, Travis, I know you've felt this too, that the need seems to be going greater and greater and greater. Yep. And that, again, the harvest is ripe and the workers are few. So if you want to talk more about this, Travis and I both would love to talk to you more about this and just encourage you in whatever God's calling you to do to be a part of this. So it's a great opportunity.
It is. And honestly, the best way, if you want to get a hold of us, is to follow us on Facebook at Groundbreakers Life. You can check out the website, groundbreakerslife.com, and you can email Gerry and I at our names at groundbreakerlife.com. So anyways, with that in mind, Gerry, we have kind of talked about the first few phases of church planting, and kind of the way to summarize the different phases is phase number 1 is connecting and recruiting. And the idea behind that is there's no more churches that I would encourage to go it alone. I think it takes a community of churches that are buying into this, particularly in our tribe in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, that are willing to celebrate it, willing to be praying for it, and willing to offer up families and resources to make it happen. And so there is a multi-month process of just the apostolic or the church planter spending time in those congregations, connecting, recruiting, casting the vision, and really letting people know that God is stirring and God is bringing forth a new community. Phase 2 is a lot of training and listening. And you did an amazing job last video talking and diving into how do we listen well to our community. We do not want to be a church that comes in with all the answers. We want to be a church that comes in as a servant and is listening to the leaders, are listening to the families, are listening to the businesses, so that we can truly understand their needs and translate the great hope we have in Christ into language and into opportunities for them to see that and touch that and experience that. And so it takes some training. And so that's a little bit longer process of just training our families, training our hearts, training our ears to listen to the community. Gerry, I know that's something you're passionate about. So any thoughts on that?
Well, just on both of those, I mean, the very first phase is an interesting one in that it takes time because the Holy Spirit works within the people that you get to talk to, and it's just a I think it, and I use amazing a lot, but it's an amazing experience to see who God lays on their hearts to be a part of something like this. And that's really that first phase. It takes some time because you really do just have to really see how God works in the midst of those congregations and in the midst of the individuals to raise up those leaders. And what a powerful thing that you get to see happen. And I don't know about you, Travis, but when I've done that in every place, it's really people are raised up that you never would have anticipated to be raised up to be leaders and to be a part of that. And can I just share one story about that?
Absolutely.
I'll never forget on the first church plant I was doing. I really felt led to talk to this one young lady, and you actually know who she is, but we. I went up to her and we were talking about the church plan and how exciting it was and everything. And I said, and she's a teacher. And I looked at her, I said, you'd be really good at helping us in the children's ministry. And it was like somebody had hit her between the eyes. I knew at that point that she was going to be a part of the leadership team, and she did. And she said she went home and prayed a lot about it and kind of wrestled with it a lot, but she also knew that God was calling her to be a part of that. And wow, those God moments like that are just I don't know, really encouraging, exciting to see.
And I think, that's why that phase one is so important, because that stuff because you have a relationship with them and there's some trusted equity there, and you've been able to see them and process them, and the Spirit has been given space to stir you and kind of like, that's the person, and that's the person. And so, absolutely. I think it's crucial. But often it's like we get a new guy and we put an unrealistic timetable on them, and then they're running, and not just able to hang out with the people at the different churches they're trying to partner with. So love it.
Yeah. And the second phase to me is just an interesting one too, because, going out and listening, we talked a lot about listening, and that is really hard for me. Maybe it's hard for other people. I mean, I already kind of have my agenda in hand, and I already think I know where we're going on this whole thing. But it's interesting that God has already prepared everything for us, and and He will lead us in the right paths, and listening to that and following that, even though it doesn't make any sense at times.
Nope.
It is another really interesting journey in that process. It really is.
I completely agree. And what I find interesting is these are all the foundational, groundbreaking stuff that needs to happen that really isn't exciting, and it's really hard to put like, here's step one, here's step two. We're starting to get into that phase now with phase 3 as we talk about serving and planning. That's the stuff that a lot of us are wired for, is putting a plan together and then executing the plan after roles are established. And yet, I think both you and I would say, if you don't do phase 1 and phase 2 effectively, phase 3, while might have short-term success, you'll often find that the very thing you're doing is just replicating what's already been done and not necessarily finding out what God is uniquely calling you in this community to do. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And what is the first question you normally get within your team and within outside of the team? When are you going to start worshiping? Where are you going to start worshiping?
Yes.
When are you going to do confirmation? What's your Sunday school going to look like? All of those things tend to be the things that people are really talking about. And man, once you get started on those things, and we'll talk about that later, I know, but man, it just the focus changes, and you got to fight to keep the focus back to where you want it to be,
Absolutely. We are creatures of habits, and so it takes a while to break some habits and be trained on how to listen to God and where He's directing us and our neighbors, so we know how to love them and love them well. So with that in mind, let us continue with the conversation on the church planting process, phase 3. And it really is talking about continuing to serve in tangible ways in the community around you, but the planning process. And so the planning process is really where we want to dive into. And so one of the things that we talked about is research, obtain, and design gathering space. Now, I'm just going to say straight up, unless you and your district and your partner churches are flush with cash and you're able to throw down $3 to $5 million to buy a piece of property and build a building before you start worship someplace, you're going to be worshiping in one of a few places. One, you'll start in a house probably, or a restaurant or a bar maybe, or a school. Those are kind of your movie theater is there, but those are a little bit, there's some pros and cons to all of these, but movie theaters, there's definitely some pros and cons. And so, Gerry, walk us through that a little bit, what your experience is with research and obtaining and designing the gathering space.
Man, it's so location or area dependent. I mean, one of the places we were in, I mean, we even looked at storage, air conditioned storage containers to worship in. What? because of the cost of everything, and even meeting rooms in hotels and motels. Though, I mean, and so it depends on the area you're in. I mean, you have to do a lot of research and try to figure out where people are, where's the good visibility, how much flexibility does the place have. I mean, there are so many details that you need to work out. One place we were at, they required a 3-year lease, and they required a personal guarantee by me, the pastor, as an individual. They would not take a guarantee as an organization. And so, man, it is so different. And, we talked about finding people of peace. Remember we talked about that?
Yes, we did.
That's one of the places I've been able to find doors opening. I mean, the very first church plant we did, I'll never forget this. I had been in another job for a while, and I had ran across this guy and met this guy, a really nice guy. And about, 5 years later, we are looking for a space. We'll come to find out he owned this space we wanted to do, and he was willing to work with us. But it was a totally different context. But it seemed to me that God had prepared that for this time. And again, can you plan that? Can you figure that out? No. But you got to be open to what, and that's just the location, right? That's just trying to even find a location,
right?
And so that those people of peace, as you go and as your team is built, some of those people on the team know people. I mean, they're just, it's like you got to turn over every rock.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And you have to be willing to be creative. And I would say, a few things here. Be really careful of the build it and they will come mentality that can sneak in. And the thought is, hey, we're not growing right now, but if we get a building or if we rent a space, then we're going to start growing. And that's a really, really, really dangerous game to be playing, because there is no guarantee that if you have you're renting a warehouse space or you're renting a school, that if the things that are fundamentally keeping you from growing as a small group, maybe in a home, if those aren't addressed, that doesn't mean they're going to magically change as soon as you move into a different space. Now, that's not to say sometimes space doesn't make a difference. It can and does make a difference. We were blessed with our first church plant. We did the very traditional go into a school, set up and tear down. And I have a whole host of reasons why I hope to never, ever, 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 ever do that again. But Gerry, you're worshiping in a school, so kudos to you.
We are. I love it. We love it.
Well, and I think, and that's with the research. And we'll get into this a little bit more later, but I'm going to go there because that's how I work. You manage the sweat equity of your people really, really carefully. Because you may have ideas of how to transform this cafetorium into this beautiful worship space. And invest a ton of resources into pipe and drape and lights and portable screens and portable this and portable that and have a 26 channel soundboard, even though you only use 5 of them, but one day you're going to, and it weighs 5,000 pounds and you get the biggest speakers you possibly can because one day they're, and what you don't realize is every one of those decisions will add 5, 10, 15 minutes of setup time or more. And that what I has realized is to have an idea on the long game of what does setup look like 5 years or 3 years into this. And a family that's been doing it faithfully for 3 years, rolling in at 7:30 in the morning to start worship at 10 a.m. to be done at 11 and not get out of there at 12:30 or 1.
Yeah, it's something you really have to be careful about. Have to be careful about. And can I just need to interject something in here?
Absolutely.
Because one of the things we just, we're typical creatures of habit and we just jumped right into this. Here's how you do it. Here's some things you do, and all this, right? Well, what I want to just reinforce for you and I and anybody who's listening to this, go back to your mission statement. Go back to who you're trying to reach. And every single thing you're doing should be around that. And so if you are trying to reach, and I'll just get extreme, right? If you're trying to reach cowboys that like to wear their hats and their boots everywhere, you don't want to set up in a fancy place that in the middle of a city, I mean, so, and that's an extreme. No, I don't think anybody do that, but it's so critical to be dogged about going back to your mission, going back to who you believe God has called you to reach and what they like, what they don't like. And that's why the demographics to me are they're such a good tool. You look at the demographics, the ones we get to use, right? And it tells you this is kind of a worship style. This is a technology style. This is a worship space style. And do you follow it exactly? No, but it can help inform both looking for a place and then transforming that space into a place that is I don't want to say attractive. It is probably attractive or comfortable to people you're reaching, not because you're trying to be attractional, right? I mean, that whole difference, right?
right. And I would say, to kind of jump on that, it make sure that it's not a hurdle to keep people from checking you out, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be attractional with smoke machines and lasers and everything else, which if that's your go-to, please call me, 972-740. I'll give you the rest of the number later because we have a lot to talk about. No, but what I'm saying is just make sure there aren't hurdles to families that God is uniquely calling and gifting you to connect with, right? Mm-hmm. Because if the Spirit is stirring people, they can show up and they will show up. And here's the deal. And Gerry, I know you would say this as well. The space comes in second to the quality of community that they experience and the authenticity of worship that they engage in. Mm-hmm. And if the space can serve those two things, you're moving in the right direction. Because I use a greasy spoon Mexican joint illustration all the time with my people. It's like, you can go into a greasy spoon Mexican joint and the walls can have layers of dust on it, and there can be a line out the door because it only seats 50 and there's 150 people that want to eat there on a Friday night. And you're okay with it because you know that the food is quality, the staff is good, and it's an I don't want to say enjoyment, but it's efficacious. It meets a need for you, and so you're willing to sacrifice for that. The same thing is true within in church space. I would rather have seating for 50 and have 70 people there than have seating for 70 and have 30 people there, because it's the same thing with a restaurant. I'd rather walk into a restaurant and have to wait outside because the seating is full than walk into a restaurant that has way too much seating, and as soon as you sit down, you think something's wrong because half of these tables are empty. And so that's part, again, of that research, having conversations, talking to anyone and everyone about it. There's business people that have space that they'd be willing to rent you or gift you on a Sunday morning or whatever. And then I think that design the space, get some other people involved in that design process. And always you need to be the one that's pushing back saying, okay, I love the idea. What does set up and tear down on every single weekend look like for this? First off, is it quality enough that it will last in that process for 2 years in? If it's not, then maybe we need to figure out something else. Number two, is the amount of energy we're going to put into it every single week really pay off? And if it does, great, make it happen. If it doesn't, again, according to your vision, according to your mission, and according to the unique community you're calling to reach, is it going to pay off? And that's the filter. What else you got? So and then we're going to go to the next slide.
Well, and maybe this is in a different spot, but I'm like you. I just, whatever comes really kind of pops to the top of my mind. One of the challenges that we've had, every place I've been, is people coming in from other established churches that for probably all practical purposes, financial resources aren't an issue. Are they tight at times? Yeah, but and they seem to have been more used to just getting whatever they want. And I have people coming into a church plant process in the same mindset. And so part of this whole training and part of this whole thing that you've got to balance in a space, in equipping that space and all of that is that it's a church plant. And church plant doesn't have unlimited resources.
Right.
And quite frankly, we shouldn't be spending unlimited resources to make the greatest and the best.
Right.
We should be doing what we need to do to reach the community at this point. And then as we grow, as we reach more people, then you expand and you get better stuff, better equipment, more stuff. But it's interesting that that's part of that dynamic, that people want it right away. And I'm that way too. I want great sound equipment. I want great chairs. But is that the most important thing right up front? And that's a learning thing, isn't it? Have you run into that too?
Oh yeah. When are we going to start doing choirs, and when are we going to have a children's choir, and all of these other, things. And, jokingly, one of the guys would always ask me every week, when do we start the organ fund? And I'm like, dude, I don't know if we're ever going to have an organ fund, but whatever.
Or buy handbells, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry,
but
there's a place for that,
right? But again, which really begs the question: are we doing this to serve ourselves and our own needs, or are we doing this because we understand the needs of the people and serving them? And that goes back to your cowboy illustration. If there is a massive community of German lederhosen wearing polka band listening people, then guess what? I'm going to put on lederhosens on a Sunday morning and make sure that the music resonates with them and their heart language, right? And so it's understanding that. And so absolutely. And just, you don't have to apologize for it, but I think there's something exciting about that rustic adventure of not being the prettiest or the shiniest. And what does Jesus say? He goes, hey, followers, listen, if you're expecting a place to sleep every night, that ain't going to happen. Because we're going to sleep every night, but it ain't going to be in hotels, and it ain't going to be fancy Nancy, because the Son of God does not have a place, home to lay his head. He is on mission, and that's what we're called to do. And so, that's that. I think that's a wise warning, and it's sometimes people will remove themselves, and alligators will move to other places when they realize they can't get their way on some of that stuff, even if they're willing to fund it. I'll even buy it. No.
Yeah. No. I know, and that's the hard part, is when people do that. It really is. And I think the other dynamic on that is a lot of our other tribes out there that do church planting a lot, or most multi-site types of things, is they have huge funding, fully they send big groups of people to go help plant churches. And so all of a sudden everything is perfect and everybody flocks to it. And then the team, I find the team starting comparing themselves with all of that.
Yes.
Well, we've got to be like that. We've got to have flyers like that. We've got to have welcome stuff like that. We've got to do all of that for us to be able to grow. And boy, it's really hard. No, that isn't what this is about,
Yep.
And that whole saying, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. And man, that comes in so easy, doesn't it? In this church planting world, especially in this part of it.
Yeah. And if you live in the Bible Belt, yeah. And I heard from the Acts Network years ago that it would cost $1 million for them to do a church plant. And and I'm like, wow, how many churches? Yeah, I can't even imagine. And so we've actually been able to, just to talk in practical terms, we've been able to get it down to, if the apostolic planters' salary and benefits are taken care of, I think you can start a church with around $50,000 to $75,000.
Yeah, I believe so too. And do it well. I mean, that's
yes.
not really, that's doing it well.
Right.
Yeah.
And having faithful families that start to give early on in that process. I think you could even do it less. If you have some resources that, you're not out there purchasing, whether it be a high quality trailer, if you have chairs or, there's a whole host of things that go in there, but I don't think you need a lot of money to plant a church that impacts marriages and families and lives. And so it's just be creative and make sure that your pastor is taken care of, and that it's the funds that are going to the church plant are actually going to the church plant, So anyways, all right, next one, because we're 26 minutes in and we've gone through one.
That's what you get for having me on.
This one's easy. Decide on the date and time and the launch date. It's easy. It's Sunday morning at 8 a.m. All right, moving on. And no. The launch date. The launch date is an important one, and it's got to be held in an open hand. And I'll just say this real quick, because it is a motivating factor and it is a focusing factor. Once you put that out there and start to share that date, people begin to become more interested and more focused, and it gets your people focused. The challenge with that is it can become to dominate every conversation. And again, we don't want it to dominate the conversation. It's a part of the mission of the church. It is not the mission of the church, though we understand fully it is the place and the space that God comes to us in word and sacrament and ministers to us in forgiveness of sins. It is an important part of the mission of the church. But we are also called to go, and as we go, to love and serve our neighbors and to teach them to obey all that we have commanded, and to invite them into this community where they will experience the forgiveness of sins and be baptized into the faith of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So there are a whole host of aspects of that. And so, put it out there far enough. I don't think it's ever wise to put a launch date more than a year out, because too many things can happen, particularly in our culture. But I think if you're getting inside 6 months and you're just starting to put a launch date out there, I think you miss out potential and some momentum that date can create. Gerry, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I have a question for you. When you say that, or when you say put out a launch date, are you saying publicly putting out one, or setting one as a leadership team that this is our target towards launch?
That's what I'm saying. So for the table church that we're doing up in Aubrey, Little Elm area, right now we have an internal conversation about the launch date of January 2023 for worship, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of been shared with our partner church. And so we're kind of getting people on board. We won't announce that to our community until we're much, much, much closer to that moment. Because like we said, too many things can happen between there, and you don't want to be the church that always has to be like, oh, we were going to do it this day, now we're going to do it that day, because you do that a few times and you get a rep.
So concerning launch, this is some of my thoughts on it, is You don't want it to be like planning for the wedding. You don't, because that could be that way, right? You put all your efforts, all your money, everything into planning for the wedding, and then that big day happens,
and then you realize you're married. Oh no.
Yeah, now what? Yeah, now
right.
The hard work happens. So I kind of am on this side of the launch date of being a date, yes, that you publicly make people aware of what you are and who you are and what you're doing and invite people. But it's just one of the, you're still yourself. You don't put on
great way to put it.
The big and dog and pony show. You don't have the smoke machines and the big band that day. Yes. And the next time they come, it's like one guy with a guitar.
Johnny up there who has half rhythm,
right.
And he only knows 3 chords,
Right. So I see so much effort put into some of these quote launch dates, and then the next few weeks after that, well, isn't the standard thinking is whatever you have at your launch date, you're going to have probably a third or a half the next from that point on.
Correct.
And that's kind of the standard. So launch dates, I'm kind of on the kind of the conservative side of focusing too much on those launch dates.
I hear you. So everyone else thinks it's more important. As a church planner, you gotta be like, it's just one of the Sundays, Yeah. And obviously, you got to roll in and make sure that your team has had a few soft launch dates, is language and lingo out there, or just opportunities to kind of make sure all of your systems are in place, whether it be setup and tear down systems, chairs, sound system, who's working the sound systems. Here's another piece that is often missed is like, okay, how are you going to collect information for visitors and guests? What do you do Sunday afternoon with that information? What do you do on Monday with that information? How do you make, all of those things you want to figure out before you launch, and that's easy to say.
What your guest ministry look like,
right.
All of those types of things, right? And I have to ask
coffee.
you, though,
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
The biggest pain in the butt for us is mobile coffee, because there's no easy way to do it. And it is stupid expensive to just have Starbucks provide it or 7-Eleven provide it. But it is coffee. I hate
it's hard. I know.
Can we do a church plant without coffee? Do we need coffee at a church plant? I don't think we do. Anyways, keep going.
This is the segue. It depends on when you're meeting.
Oh.
So the question is, how do you decide what time and day?
Well, I think you go back to your vision, your mission, and we're going to figure out what's going to happen with your people. That's most effective, right?
Yeah.
And I think the 3 main options are Sunday morning, Sunday evening / afternoon, or Saturday evening. Each one of those has pros and cons. I'm not going to answer the question for you, but make sure that it's what you and your people and your vision and the mission, how it aligns best. Is that fair to say, Gerry?
Yeah, that's what I would say. And here's the other question, though. Is once you start on that time and date, is that locked in forever?
No. But the more often you change it, realize it will impact, right? There might be a few families that can't do a different time or a different date. And so those can be difficult conversations. But always, everything you're doing in the church plan has to be held with an open hand.
I love that comment, with an open hand. And an open hand turned over, right? Because you can't hold anything. This way you can hold something.
See, I've always done open hand like this, and you just blew my mind, because you're like, it is true, an open hand. Because
okay. And so giving it to really leaving it and giving it to God fully. And that's the hard part. We want to say we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're not holding on to it, but we're still holding on to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
The next few are fairly simple. You begin public worship in the community. Here's the deal, Gerry. I know one of the questions is publicity. How much do you spend on publicity? What does publicity look like? I think here's the tension that you have. The best publicity is people who are in your community already that are excited about it and talking to their family, friends, and neighbors. However, there is another form of publicity just to let others know that you're in the community. And, some people spend gobs of money on flyers that hit the mailbox. And I would say, how do you and your family treat those flyers? Because it's probably a good indication how most families will treat flyers that come through the mailbox. And so be careful of spending copious amounts of resources on that. You do a really good job with Facebook, Gerry. So why don't you share us a little bit about you and your approach on Facebook and what that's meant for the gathering?
So first of all, it's not me that does it. I am not that good on Facebook, but I have some people as part of their team.
Lying.
That's what they are.
Yeah, he's not lying. He's not good on Facebook. He's not.
I don't do anything on Facebook, really, and I should.
You don't.
I know I should. I know I should, but I don't. I've kept going back, and then I keep asking the question, why? Why am I doing this? And that's the question you need to answer before you jump into it, right? Why are you doing this? And so one of the things that I hope talk to the leadership team about is, we have basically 3 areas of social media. We have website, we have Instagram and Facebook, and those are kind of the 3 that we go on. And so what are each one of those for? So I think it's really important as a team to define what each one of those are good for and what you use them for, and then stay within those curves. Like the website is not really the best one for dynamic information. It's for just kind of research information and what do we expect? What times are they meeting? Who are these people? So that's website, and then social media. Facebook is more, it's different than even Instagram. And so I have some people on our team and had some before that know what that's all about and how to use it. And that's an important thing to do. And the ads that you kind of use on Facebook are awesome. I mean, they really get the word out there well, and they're cheap. So we do those quite a bit. We also have people that are on the local social media networks. There's, neighborhood types of ones and community Facebook pages and all of that. And so we really encourage all of them to share what we do on Facebook out. Also, the cities that we are in, they have Facebook pages, and we've figured out how now we can work with them and fill out their forms, and then they will link our Facebook to their Facebook. And so then you get this community thing going there. So there's all sorts of things, but I think the more and more you can use social media, but purposely use it and really define how you're going to use it, I think that to me is the way to go. It really is. And texting, oh my goodness, texting is the best way to do that too. It really is, because then if you put a kind of a text together or a format together or a link together that your people can forward on to their friends text-wise, that would link them to that is so powerful, because now you're using the network that you already have established within the church. So.
Yep. So lots of information there, and obviously, I think we should do another podcast of like how do we do social ministry well, right?
Okay.
And things like that. So we'll put a little pin in that, and circle back, and make that happen.
I could get the lady that helps us with that too. I could get her in this too if you'd want to kind of get her thoughts on it. Because she knows all about the search engine optimization and all of those types of things, and so that's pretty cool.
So eventually down the road, speaking of volunteers, you will need to recruit and possibly pay some people on leadership. Here's my thoughts on that. I think I got this from Andy Stanley years ago. I'm sure he did not create it, but it's the idea of hire slow, fire fast. And, you need to figure that out for what that means for you and your community and the unique ecclesiology system that you're in. But the bottom line is this. A lot of people are willing to volunteer early on. Do not burn your budget by hiring a bunch of people early on and then having to go back and fire them, because the problem is that kills momentum, it stirs division, and it can get really nasty really quick. And so faithful people that have proven themselves to be beneficial, then you figure out a way to get them some resources to do what they're willing to do. Because if they're willing to do it with excellence as a volunteer, then giving them money is cherry on the cake. And it's hard to give someone money and then try to train them to do it with excellence, because they might just be doing it for the money. Anyways, I'm sure there's a few stories out there that I have and you have on that. So Gerry, thoughts on recruiting, paid leadership, children's ministries, stuff like that?
Well, I think what you said is just spot on, because you want to make sure that you need the people that you're bringing on. Because a prime example at one of the last ones we did, we thought that God was calling us to reach into the student ministry. And if we would have pulled the trigger on that early, we would have kind of hired a student ministry person. But the reality is after things started moving forward, it was really, we were getting little kids. And so if we would have had a student minister and the little kids started showing up, and the student ministry evaporated. I mean, it was gone, and it is nothing we didn't do or did do. But so early on, you're trying to figure out really where God is leading it, and sometimes you misread what happens, I think, and so just to be slow in that. The only one that I think maybe sooner than later, and that this is out of experience, is maybe getting somebody, if you don't have somebody on the team, is to get somebody to help you with your finances. Yes. That's a huge deal. You need somebody that does that well from the very beginning.
Yep. And depending on your partnership churches and how you're doing your finances to there, that is absolutely essential. And I would say an administrative assistant is one of those behind the scenes roles that are very, very important, because they can develop the systems and then repeat the systems for visitor follow-up. And you can leverage the small church reality and really make an impact and give people the community they need. There's a lot there. Man, we are 40 minutes in, so I'm gonna pull us to an end, Gerry, because we have enjoyed the conversation a little too much. It's been too long. We apologize. We hope to do this more frequent. Anyways, Gerry, you are a blessing. Thank you very much for everything that you share and your mission and ministry there. And exciting weekend for you, being installed there at the Gathering in the Texas District. And so, man, God bless you on that. Hey, for the rest of you guys, thank you for checking out Groundbreakers Harvesters. Obviously, if you can, give us a like on Facebook. Follow us there. There's algorithms I don't know about, so I need to hire someone, obviously. And you can always go to groundbreakerslife.com. And if you want to be a part of the mailing list, fill out the information there, and we'll get someone locked and loaded and greet you with an email and make sure you're on that stuff. So anyways, God bless you guys. If you have any questions, by all means, send us an email, Travis or Gerry at groundbreakersharvesters.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Take care and God bless.